Welcome viewers. In this lecture today, we will be discussing about type 4 organizational theories. Learning objectives are type 4 organizational theory or management science approach, how it is beneficial, organizational metaphors. We will be discussing about metaphors to understand the rationale behind management science philosophy, the core concepts of type 4 theories, which is a shift from bureaucracy to agility, and when do type 4 theories work, the key features of brain and political metaphor, which will be the mechanism behind type 4 theories. James March and Herbert Simon's cognitive limit to rationality, and further we will also discuss about Jeffrey Pfeffer's organization as political arena. In the last few lectures, we have categorized organizational theories based on related metaphors. Type 1 theories we have discussed as a metaphor lying underneath is machine metaphor and closed systems approach, where the focus is on mechanical efficiency. Type 2 theorist metaphor is living systems metaphor. Organizations have discussed on the people and human relations. Type 3 theorists have focused on organization as an open systems metaphor with the contingency designs, and there started the evolution of modern management, a combination of metaphors including organizations as organism, political systems and culture, and the focus is on dynamic and open systems theory in how organizations interact with environment. Further, we will be moving towards type 4 theorists, where the underlying metaphor is brain metaphor, learning systems metaphor, brain metaphor, learning, political systems metaphor, and mathematical and statistical analysis would be used to explain the management science approach. So, type 4 theorists, their focus is on mathematical and statistical analysis. It is also a type of modern management theory where the focus is on management science. The management science specially focuses on mathematical and statistical analysis, data and feedback loops for problem solving, information processing, adaptation and collective learning to respond to a complex and dynamic business environment. The underlying metaphor or organization has been viewed as a brain or learning systems metaphor and political systems metaphor. These are two dominant metaphors to explain the modern management science or management science in the type 4 theories. The prominent theorists, prominent management practitioners are James March and Herbert Simon's cognitive limit to rationality, Jeffrey Pfeffer's organization as political arena. So, let us also understand what are the views of type 4 theorists. Organizational theorists in the type 4 employ a political metaphor to focus on power, conflicting interest and resource allocation within an organization, viewing it as a political system rather than a unified entity. As we have already discussed, an organization has limited resources, limited positions and people trying to or vying to gain our resources. Organizational theorists employ a political metaphor focusing on power, conflicting interest and resource allocation within an organization, viewing it as a political system rather than a unified entity. So, in the political metaphor, the underlying mechanism is organization has limited resources, there is scarcity of resources and positions are very limited, and people have their interest to gain or access to the power, access to resources. So, political metaphor is the dominant mechanism behind the political metaphor, and this perspective highlights the role of power dynamics, decision making as a power struggle. There is always a tussle for position, there is also always a tussle for the resources, access to resources, and the formation of alliances and conflicts between different interest groups. The political metaphor emphasizes how power shapes organizational structure. The power and politics within the organizations have an impact on organizational structure, policies and actions, influencing how conflicts are resolved and how rational actions are perceived differently by various stakeholders. How decision making is taken in an organization is always influenced by the dominance of power and politics. Type 4 theorists focus on the mathematical and statistical models. The key features of the political metaphor: organization as a place where individuals and groups have diverse interests, compete for power and influence. Power is the central concept. Power is not just a resource but a core element of organizational life. There are different stakeholders and each one enjoys a power because of his or her position, because of authority, and of several reasons, because of knowledge, because of influence. This serves as a means by which conflicting interests are managed and decisions are being made. There is a focus on self interest and conflict. Individuals and groups pursue their own goals, leading to a range of conflict in interests. The key players and relationships: leaders viewed as figures wield power who exercise power and influence other employees because of their position, because of their knowledge power, referent power, and allies and foes. Other leaders are potential allies or rivals. Exploited versus exploiters. This metaphor provides a framework to understand how dominant groups, influential groups, may exploit or alienate others for their own benefit. Influence on organizational processes. How the dominance of a few key stakeholders can influence organizational processes. The political metaphor reveals how organizational structures, rules, and practices are products of political maneuvering and power plays rather than solely rational design. We generally assume that there is an evidence based management which helps in decision making. There is an objective way of taking decisions or a rational or scientific approach to decision making. But, however, no organization is free from the dominance of power and politics, the influence of the few who have manipulate the facts. So, dynamic nature of an organization, the political metaphor acknowledges there is a constant negotiation, coalition building, and consensus seeking amongst a group of people. The theoretical foundation behind this concept is Gareth Morgan's work in Images of Organizations. This concept has been proposed in 1996, which explores the political metaphor to understand how organizations function as political systems, and it discusses the distribution and exercise of power. Robert Michel's Iron Law of Oligarchy in his book Political Parties 1911. This theory is often associated with political metaphor, suggesting that power tends to concentrate in the hands of a few individuals, leading to the iron cage of bureaucracy. And people treat organization as a political system, Robert Michel's Iron Law of Oligarchy in his book Political Parties 1911, this theory is often associated with the political metaphor, suggesting that power tends to concentrate in the hands of few influential individuals, leading to iron cage of bureaucracy. The rules and regulations are long binding, which develops a kind of an iron cage. Marxist theory, labor process theorists, and others who analyze capitalism through the lens of power use political metaphor to understand how organizations can function as instruments of domination. What is the implication of metaphor for practitioners? Understanding organizational change. This metaphor offers insights into why and how organizations resist or initiate change due to the interest of those in power. The political metaphor also helps in understanding strategic communication. Public relations practitioners need to understand organizational politics to form coalitions, negotiate, and advocate their interest within organizations. Identifying the hidden agenda or the political metaphor can bring to light the aspects of organizational life that might otherwise remain concealed, fostering a deep sense of understanding of its complex dynamics. Type 4 theorists have also helped the organization to understand the focus of type 4 theories. The organization also functions like a brain metaphor, is similar to human brain, emphasizing collective intelligence, information processing, and continuous learning to adapt to changing environment. In the type 4, organizational theorists have also emphasized the organization is not just like a political metaphor, but it is also like a brain metaphor. The brain metaphor is similar to human brain, emphasizing collective intelligence, information processing, continuous learning to adapt to changing environment. The key aspects include decentralized information processing, self-regulation, the concept of double loop learning for the self-correction, and a holistic picture or a holographic structure where each part contains the essence of the whole. This metaphor encourages flexibility, innovation, and adaptability, viewing the organization as an evolving entity rather than a rigid machine metaphor. Collective intelligence highlights the combined wisdom and intelligence of employees and departments working together to process information and achieve organizational goals. It also helps in information processing. Organizations are seen as systems that receive, process, and store information much like a human brain does. Learning organizations, the brain metaphor is central to the concept of learning organization, where human brain learns and evolves. Similarly, an organization is also like a learning system which is capable of persistent learning, self-adjustment, optimizing its functions to the surrounding environment. Organization is evolving with the changes or evolution of the environment. Double loop learning is a core concept where organization not only corrects errors but also questions the underlying assumptions and standards. Holographic design or organization as a whole, inspired by the idea that each part of the hologram contains the whole image, suggesting that information and intelligence are distributed throughout the organization rather than being concentrated in a central command. The self-regulation and self-organization, organizations operating under this metaphor are capable of regulating and adjusting their own operations, allowing for decentralized control and emerging innovation from the bottom up. When do type 4 theories work? Type 4 theories work in complex and stable environment. The metaphor is particularly useful when an organization faces numerous unknowns, when the environment has challenge and each day it is evolving, but the environment remains relatively stable, allowing for knowledge and learning to be relevant over period of time. Emphasis is on adaptability, encourages flexibility, agility, and adaptability in the face of change. When there is a rapid change, an organization has to learn, adapt, and evolve. There is a shift from bureaucracy to agility as per type 4 theories or the modern management theories have shifted its focus from the rigidity to agility. This metaphor is a direct counterpoint to the traditional organizations which viewed organization as a machine which is characterized by rigid hierarchies, top-down management control. A brain-like organization is considered to be flexible, decentralized, and more like an organic approach, which has distributed intelligence, emergent strategies, and evolved leadership. What is distributed intelligence? Rather than concentrating decision making at the top, a brain-like organizational metaphor diffuses intelligence throughout the system. Emergent strategy and organizational patterns emerge from the collective learning and experience of employees rather than being imposed from the above. Rather than having a top-down approach, this metaphor allows the participation of employees. It encourages employees to contribute their views. Evolved leadership. Leaders act just as a facilitator who nurture the organization's vision and encourage a culture of continuous learning rather than as controllers who issues command. What are limitations of type 4 theories? Entrenched mental models. Organizations can become trapped by their own mental models, their own past histories, or their success, leading to superficial adaptation rather than true change as seen within Kodak and film photography. Power dynamics and ideologies. The metaphor can be limited by internal power structures and rigid ideologies that hinder true openness, learning, and creation of a truly adaptable organization. Another limitation is oversimplification. It can sometimes oversimplify complex organizational dynamics, leading to belief that organization is learning and thriving when it is merely adjusting its performance superficially. Challenges to power structure. Implementing a self-organizing model can be difficult for managers who are unwilling, who are reluctant to relinquish control. The shift in power and mindset can be uncomfortable for all involved. There is a potential for chaos. Without some form of central alignment, decentralized decision making could lead to lack of coherence, lack of clarity, or a slow response to major issues. The unknown of the brain. Since human brain is still not fully understood, using it as a direct template for an organization can be very imprecise. The metaphor may overemphasize rationality at the expense of emotions and politics. To summarize, that an organization is perceived, or people or management practitioners have perceived organization as a brain metaphor, as a learning system, but it cannot simply copy the human brain, because there are in an organization there are several other dynamics which play dominant role. So therefore, organization, the metaphor may overemphasize rationality at the expense of emotions and the politics which are dominant players in the organization. So type 4 theorists represent a group of researchers who are building upon the foundational ideas of James March and Herbert Shimon, specifically in areas like decision making, organizational learning, and non-rational elements of organizational behavior. So let us understand March and Shimon's cognitive limits to rationality. March and Shimon challenged the classical notion of rational or optimum decisions. They argued that most decision makers selected satisfactory alternatives, that were good enough. Only in exceptional cases would they be concerned with discovery and selection of optimal alternatives. March and Shimon called for revised model of organizational theory, one very different from the rational cooperative systems view. The revised model would recognize the limit of a decision maker's rationality and acknowledge the presence of conflicting goals. Individuals or the stakeholders will have conflict of interest, conflicting goals, so which has been taken care of. His work highlights on adaptability and strategic choice. James March's contribution is specifically on adaptability and strategic choice. His work highlights the trade-off between two fundamental strategies, exploitation and exploration. Exploitation is improving existing competencies and refining current technologies. Exploration is developing new capabilities and experimenting with new technologies. In his paper published in 1991, March has examined the intellectual foundation underlying the choice between these two strategies of exploitation and exploration. He refers to different scholarly traditions to approach decision making from distinct perspectives. Four choices of strategic decision making proposed by March explains the dynamics of exploration exploitation to inform organizational decision making, rational model of choice, Decision makers have clear preference and sufficient information to choose the optimal path for maximizing their interest, fails to account for the real world complexity. There is, in reality, the world is or the business environment faces complex challenges. Theories of limited rationality builds on the work of Herbert Shimon known as bounded rationality. Decision makers are not perfectly rational. They operate with limited information, cognitive abilities and time, leading them to satisfice accepting a good enough solution. Evolutionary model of organization. This approach views organization as adaptive to the environment through variation, selection and retention. Further, he emphasized on the generic approach to organizational learning, how organizations learn and adapt over period of time, emphasizing feedback, experience and development of routines. Contribution to organizational decision making. What is the contribution of March to organizational decision making? Organizational decision making with complexities, ambiguities, competing goals and limited information is a challenge. So, he has proposed behavioral theory of firm with Richard Syart in 1963. Large firms are coalitions of different groups with conflicting goals. Firms aim to satisfy these goals rather than maximize their profit. Again, March has, along with Michael Cohen and Johan Olson, in 1972 proposed the garbage can model, describing how decisions are made in ambiguous situations. When the situational complexities are more, problems, solutions, and participants are brought together in a garbage can or chaotic manner to form decisions. Further, he has also proposed a study of ambiguity, foundational work of March and Olson on organizational decision making with unclear goals, imperfect technologies, and difficult to interpret histories. Ambiguity is core feature of real world decision making. World is very chaotic, is not free from complexities, has been highlighted in a primer on decision making, a book written by March in 1991. James Piffer's organization as a political arena. Piffer built on the work of March and Shimon to develop a model of organizational theory that encompasses power coalitions, conflicting goals, conflict over goals, organizational design decisions that favor interest of those in power. Control in organization becomes an end rather than the means to rational goals such as efficient production of output. Organizations have varying groups with different demands. They have organizations' design is a result of power struggle by diverse coalitions. To understand how and why organizations are designed, assess preferences and interests of those in organizations who influence design decisions. The changing face of organizational theory. Organizations are no longer compartmentalized or restricted to their local employees. Organizations are collaborative across countries, across cultures, using benefits of internet and wireless communication networks in all possible areas. Virtual organizations have emerged, the new forms of organizational designs have emerged. This new status of organizations have revamped the way in which we approach organizational theory. The boundaries of organizations have become more fluid, more flexible. Those who have influenced over organizational design decisions have edge of getting the best talent to work. So, management science theory was developed after Second World War using quantitative techniques. Edward Demings, father of quality management, introduced philosophy of management science, operations research, quality control, inventory management, information technology have emerged as the major fields of management. Quality was key success factor till 1990s. Demings used statistical tool for quality control. Key factors of quality management are customer satisfaction, employee engagement, continuous improvement. Further, we will discuss the foundations of management science. The modern management foundation rests with quantitative analysis and tools, commitment to quality and performance, knowledge management and learning organizations, evidence based management. Quantitative analysis and tools emphasizes on value chain analysis. It's a scientific application. Quantitative analysis and tools, the scientific application of mathematical techniques to management problems. There are few examples like value chain analysis, supply chain management, inventory management, quality control, queuing theory, linear programming, and network models are part of management science or operations research. Analytics, the use of large database and mathematics to solve problems and make informed decisions using systematic analysis. Typical quantitative approach to managerial problem solving. Problems encountered is systematically analyzed, appropriate mathematical models and computations applied, optimal solutions have been identified. Commitment to quality and performance. Quality management, managers and workers in progressive organizations are quality conscious. Quality and competitive advantage are linked. Total quality management, comprehensive approach to continuous quality improvement for a total organization. It creates context for value chain analysis. Continuous improvement, continual search for continual search for new ways to improve quality. Something always can and should be improved. Further, it emphasizes on ISO certification, global quality benchmarks, refine and upgrade quality to meet ISO standards. The third pillar is knowledge management and organizational learning approach. Knowledge management is the process of using intellectual capital for competitive advantage. Portfolio of intellectual assets, including patents, intellectual property rights, trade secrets, and accumulated knowledge of the entire workforce. Knowledge management cycle consists of three important aspects. One is people, management, and application. So, it starts with creating knowledge, capturing or acquiring knowledge, organizing the knowledge content, access, search, disseminate knowledge, use and discover, share or learn, continuously learn, change, adapt, and then share, disseminate that knowledge. So, it is called knowledge management cycle. Knowledge management has a life cycle which starts with creation of knowledge, acquiring knowledge, refinement of knowledge, storing that knowledge in a repository, in organizational, making it institutionalized, transfer that knowledge using wired technology and utilizing the knowledge, sharing of knowledge, and which is used for organizational performance. What is knowledge creation? Knowledge creation, if you can understand, there is a process which has been given by Nonaka and Takeuchi, which says that there are two types of knowledge. One is tacit, another is explicit knowledge. Tacit is something which resides in human brain, explicit is something which is documented in organizational processes. And there is a process of conversion of knowledge. One is called socialization, externalization, internalization, and combination of knowledge. What is socialization? Socialization, which is when people exchange information, it is process of conversion of tacit to tacit knowledge, where individuals exchange information about their experience, about their knowledge, they share knowledge with each other. So, which is when people socialize, there is a new knowledge being created. Externalization is when tacit and explicit knowledge, when there is a exchange of information or tacit to explicit knowledge sharing. Say for example, a person has learned and he wants to document that knowledge, make it more explicit. So, the knowledge, the human knowledge is stored in a repository, is documented in the form of text, video, that is called externalization of knowledge. Internalization is when it is again exchange between explicit and tacit knowledge. The documents in the form of documents of rules, procedures, the new knowledge or the domain knowledge is available in the form of books. When a person learns from the available document, the document which is available in the form of text, video, tries to understand the form of knowledge, tries to learn it. So, it is called internalization, understands and stores in his or her memory. Combination is when explicit to explicit knowledge transfer. When the two organizations which have a document, well documented knowledge form available or knowledge assets, when that is shared, when there are two institutions sharing knowledge, the libraries of two institutions, they are sharing knowledge, the rules, procedures are shared between two institutions, the documented knowledge shared between two organizations is called a combination of knowledge. So, SCCI, socialization, externalization, combination and internalization model given by Nonaka and Takeuchi in 1995, it talks about creation of knowledge. The knowledge once created is refined through the process of explication, drawing inferences, encoding, evaluation, search for inclusion in memory. The knowledge is further refined, the newly developed knowledge or newly created knowledge is refined further to store it in the organization's memory. Before that, the knowledge is acquired through search, sourcing, grafting process. The knowledge is stored, knowledge is shared with it is shared within the organization using computer, wireless technology within the organization. It is widely available, it is disseminated within the organization, the knowledge is further utilized. Elaboration, infusion, thoroughness, knowledge which is transferred, shared is utilized and utilized for development of new knowledge in the organization. It is used for organizational performance. Knowledge management, further if you look at the details of knowledge management, what is KM process? It talks about KM tools, communities of practice, the people with similar interest, they join together, they have similar interest, they join together in the communities of practice or a room for discussion where they can enhance knowledge. There are e-learning resources, web portals, then peer assisted learning, study tours which will also further develop or enhance knowledge of individuals. So, the entire process of knowledge management consists of knowledge generation, knowledge capture, knowledge synthesis, knowledge sharing and knowledge assessment. This knowledge is further evaluated, which is again developed further to help in improving the knowledge management elements, learning and adaptation, capacity building and coordination, which is further leading to initial outcomes of knowledge and skills of individuals or human capital has increased and which will further lead to the organizational outcomes or intermediate outcomes of evidence based policies and practices. The policies, practices, rules have been further refined. It results in development of new products, new services, service delivery improves. So, knowledge management helps in learning, adapting and changing organizations, policies, practices, products and services. Implementation of knowledge management. There are certain strategic goals in the organizations and knowledge management has also certain specific goals. It further consists of KM components, knowledge management strategy, implementation and components. Implementation components. Strategic goals generate, communicate and share knowledge internally and externally. The knowledge is being shared as discussed in SCCI model. The knowledge is generated, communicated and shared both internally as well as with other institutions. This will help in improving productivity through embedding KM processes in daily work activities. It helps in improving the system further, capture of knowledge, sharing and generating knowledge to stimulate innovation and achieve results and mission success. So, this will help together both these improving productivity through embedding knowledge in knowledge management processes and capturing and sharing knowledge to create new knowledge will help together to systematically capture and share critical knowledge for an organization, which will help in assigning knowledge stewards to directors and knowledge retention managers or knowledge process owners, develop multimedia asset management, establish link with universities for additional talent pool on projects and knowledge management research. So, this will help an organization to further improve its processes. Similarly, ensure a vital workforce and promote human capital. Increase sense of community for continuous people retention. Increase collaboration for expanding partnership and generate new work. So, knowledge management can only be enhanced if there is collaboration, knowledge sharing, if there is interpersonal cooperation. So, it will help in building and nurturing a knowledge sharing culture, create a unified knowledge network. The technological collaboration and the collaboration of people across organization help in continuously evolving with new knowledge, develop expertise to create uh, keen new knowledge, develop online communities with active facilitators, create learning groups to foster relationship, recognize and the knowledge management can propagate in the organization if there is a provision to recognize and reward significant learning and knowledge sharing behavior. If you continuously hold knowledge sharing forums, then the organization can further help in improving new knowledge. So, both knowledge management and learning organizations help the organization to be more productive. Now, we will be discussing about what a learning organization is. Learning organizations are organizations that are able to continuously learn, adapt to new circumstances, learning with the changing business environment, adapting new resources. Developing core ingredients include encourage learning. If an organization has a provision to encourage human capital development, encourage learning in the employees, information sharing across the organization, there is a focus on teamwork, collaboration, empowerment, participation across the organization, then the organization will be considered as a learning organization. Learning organization is defined as an entity that fosters a culture of continuous learning and knowledge creation at all levels. It is characterized by the ability of its members to learn continuously, transform to adapt to the changing business environment. Learning organizations proactively they invest in employee education and learning and encourage growth to remain competitive with the changing technology and evolving business landscape. What is learning organization? The focus is, as Peter Senge has given this concept in his book, The Fifth Discipline, in the year 1990. Learning organization is one which emphasizes on systems thinking, personal mastery, team learning, mental model, and shared vision. What is systems thinking? Interdependence among people and processes working together as a whole system. The emphasis is on the people and the processes collectively working to evolve, learn as a whole system. Personal mastery is individual's commitment to processes of learning. An individual emphasizes to improve his or her personal knowledge, develop mastery over any task. Team learning is individuals learn, share and develop. Individuals share what they have learned with the team to become more knowledgeable. If you hoard knowledge, you will only keep it to yourself. If there is a concept of sharing with other individuals, other people who are working in the team, share your experience, share your knowledge, it will grow. The entire organization will grow. The mental models exchange unwanted values for new and applicable values. Exchange unwanted values for new and applicable values. Mental models are mental perspectives of individuals, shun the old and adapt new values, new learnings. Shared vision, everyone owns the vision, everyone owns the vision and has focus and energy for learning. Everyone has a tendency to learn and grow. Shared vision emphasizes on learning and sharing the goals with other individuals, other people in the organization. Learning organization and knowledge management have helped organization to be more creative, to be more progressive. So, how does this happen? If you have a structure, and structure emphasizes on benchmarking with the industry practice, flexibility and adaptability networks, and which works in coordination with the technology for collaboration and communication for knowledge sharing. If there is a culture which consists of HRM practices, learning climate, culture to promote training and development programs which will help in changing mindsets. What we discussed in learning organization, shun the old practices to adapt new. If there is a leader who will take the ownership to support commitment towards learning, leader or the top management support committed to leadership and strategic alignment. If the leader is driving the organization towards success, towards investing on a learning organization, investing on knowledge sharing, importance of knowledge creation, inbuilt and long term learning efforts, if there is a focus on the long term goal on creativity, innovation, by changing the organization's culture, changing the practices, changing structure and technology, the knowledge management system will start flourishing. Importance of intellectual capital, knowledge will be propagated, and this will encourage innovation process, innovation outcomes in terms of new products, services, products and processes, new knowledge will be created. So, there is an exchange of information across organization which will result in new knowledge creation, which will make the organization to be more progressive, to be more sustainable in future. And even if the organization is facing a dynamic environment which is fast changing and where there is constant pressure, still the organization, if they have adopted knowledge management and there is a focus on learning, continuous learning, that organization will always remain progressive, will always be even in the adverse situation. Next, we will focus on evidence based management. Evidence based management is based on making management decisions on hard facts about what really works. So, it rests with identify the problem or opportunity, gather internal evidence about data, the problem and evaluate its relevance and validity, gather external evidence about the problem from published research or gather information, views from stakeholders affected by the decision and consider ethical implications, integrate and critically appraise the data and then make a decision. Evidence based management focuses on data, identifying the problem first, then collect the data, validate the data and try to solve the problem using the available data. Evidence based management talks about the hypothesis generation, experimentation and measurement, inspect and then adapt. So, there is a complete cycle of experimental loop which will help the organization to move from the present state to the desired or the strategic state or the strategic goal. How is the movement possible? It is only possible if we can develop some assumptions, one idea for how to make the progress towards the next goal. If you can make several goals, sub goals, like from the starting state to the current state, and you can make some intermediate and the long term goals. So, each stage we can experiment or develop a hypothesis how to make progress towards the next state. Experiment and measure, try out the idea. First you can implement the idea, measure lag and see the results based on the data available, inspect based on the measures, what did you learn, if there are some errors, how the errors can help us to make or adapt to the change, what might you try next and what is the next goal. Then the organization can reach towards the strategic goal. So, there are two dimensions, it is measuring with the respect to time and on the y axis it measures. Evidence based management or the strategic managerial decision making process starts with, there are several steps in how an organization can make progress. Set specific goals, identify the problem, standard performance metrics, develop alternatives, select the best alternative, acquire and allocate resource, execute selected decisions, evaluate decisions, monitor decisions and then see your progress towards the goal. Contemporary management practices. This era emphasizes data-driven decision making. It emphasizes on agility, adaptability in response to rapidly changing environment. The key trends are big data and analytics, using large data sets to gain insights and improve business performance. It also emphasizes on agility, agile methodologies, adopting flexible and iterative approaches to project management, product development, globalization and cultural diversity, managing diverse workforce and navigating global markets. To conclude, what we have discussed, how decisions such as mergers and acquisitions have taken place, purchase of new technology, launch of new products are taken is not always very clear. So, traditional schools of decision making emphasize on rational choice where managers identify problems, search alternative solutions, prioritize preference as per certain criteria, and finally make decisions. Preferences change as a result of exogenous pressure and actors' experience. Problems and solutions are less connected by causal reference and more by simultaneity. Linkage between past events are unclear. Thus, data gathering and use of information in decision making plays a symbolic role. To summarize, type 4 theorists and understand the logic behind management science philosophy. We have also discussed how type 4 theories have shifted from the rigidity, bureaucracy to agility. When do type 4 theories work? The situations we have discussed, key features of brain and political metaphors. We have also discussed about James March contribution to organizational decision making. Jeffrey prefers organization as a political arena. Contemporary management practices of learning organizations, quality management, knowledge management, learning organizations have been discussed. And lastly, what we discussed is when the organization is facing a dynamic and competitive business environment, how the management science approach helps an organization to be more sustainable. Thank you.